It's good. Dinsick wins the game at the buzzer.
The More Bettor podcast.
What up, everyone? Welcome back into the Board Better show. Your host, Josh, joined by a very special guest and a good friend of mine who we haven't had a chance to connect recently, but managed to get you to squeeze some spare time to join me on this side of the world. My friend, Drew Dinsick, a.k.a. the Whale Kappa. How you doing, my man?
I'm well. Great to talk to you. This is a cool time of the season because, over here, at least in the United States, March Madness and college basketball conference tourneys really start to take sort of the main attention away from a lot of the betting public, which leaves the NBA those of us who care about it the most. I particularly like this time of year. Usually have very, very rare that I'm just sitting on my hands saying, well, if lines are fair, everything's known. I'm pretty aggressive down the stretch here because everybody's got fairs that are based largely on season long info. And that's not exactly what you're getting night in, night out. So if you can kind of, look at the micro and step away from the macro, if you can catch, teams that are heating up, cooling off at the right times, you can crush in March and April. So fingers crossed that it's going to be a good way to make money in the coming month. But either way, I like where the NBA is at in terms of a lot of the storylines and the way that the playoff fabric is setting up.
Yeah, I love the current landscape and state of the NBA as well. Completely agree there. I'm a little bit envious at this time of year, though, that, there is that March Madness feeling over there. I feel like I'm missing out on something, not being a part of it and not having any allegiances.
You ever watch any college basketball?
I try not to. I prefer watching real basketball.
Yeah, so that's why you feel that way then, because it's a tough hang. If you watch a lot of NBA, it's very, very tough to go back and sit through a college game with the way that its paces and.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I feel about it. But kudos to those who do enjoy it and do watch it and are profitable off it. I'm sure there are many angles to be had there. But we are sticking to NBA today. We will go through our usual segments. We're going to tackle a homework review, jump into a scouting report, looking at a very fun Southeast division. Not so fun, but I guess intriguing would probably be the better word there. We'll get into our best bets, and then we'll do everyone's favorite squad ride for the Discord channel group there. But Drew, let's start things off with our homework review because I wanted to talk about totals in particular at the moment. Okay. Unders cashing in a pretty decent way since the All-Star break for good reason as well. I was kind of looking at it a little bit deeper. I've been on a lot of unders and successfully, so hopefully that continues. But specifically with these matchups with teams who are vying very heavily for seeding positions and for playing positions and looking at how those games have been played out, the pace of play in those games is way down on the season average for both those teams specifically and a league as a whole. I mean, just pulling up a few of them, you have like Golden State, Minnesota was 99 possessions. Portland versus the Pelicans was 93 possessions. Toronto, Chicago was 92 possessions. Golden State, Portland was 97 possessions. Like these are way down on the averages and the estimates as well, the implied estimates that the markets are suggesting with their totals. Do you think that there's an opportunity for us to continue to stay ahead of the marketplace there? I think that there is, and I think that my bets today will probably highlight that a little bit. But I just think that we're at a point now where every game matters, specifically in the West. And as a result, these games are being played a little bit more like playoff games in terms of both the pace and the intensity on defense. And as a result, some of those offensive inconsistencies that come with nerves, especially for some of these younger teams.
Yeah, there has been a playoff feel to a lot of the matchups we've gotten since the All-Star break, ended. I think the NBA did this on purpose. I think they kind of, looked into the crystal ball a little bit and said, okay, we're going to put we're going to save some of our high profile, like really interesting matchups. We're going to key them all in this sort of space before March Madness really kind of takes over. And after, when we have the landscape to ourselves, because football is a wrap. And it was a good strategy. I mean, the handful of games you think of, like, man, what were the best games you saw all season, man? Like, man, some of those games right out of the All-Star break were just awesome. The ending of that Philly-Boston game, unbelievably good, a competitive game. And Philly Memphis was incredible. The Denver Cleveland game was pretty damn good. There has been a playoff spirit, and I think I didn't dig into the time, sort of the possessions with respect to where we are in the game, but just kind of eyeball test would tell me that fourth quarters have been slowing down and have had more, kind of more intensity, particularly in the last 4 minutes. And that's always the case. It's really the case in playoff basketball. And I think we're seeing a lot of pre-playoff basketball, like you mentioned, which is driving a ton of this. Now, that is to say, there's been some pretty high-scoring games, some games where defense has been optional. And then the one game that stands out was the Kings Clippers that went 175 points a pop there. But of course, that was because of overtime. Now, so some teams are still giving you less than ideal effort on the defensive side of the ball. But I think you do get the sense that overall every team that is not intentionally tanking is taking this time of the year very seriously and giving you honest effort, particularly in fourth quarter defense and rotation decisions.
Do you think as well, just pivoting slightly and looking ahead to the playoffs, do you think these playoffs potentially are going to be ones where series might be dictated on the better offense versus the defense? Just because I don't think that there's a lot of great defensive teams out there in the NBA at the moment.
Yeah, and I think specifically if you look at the teams that have good defenses, at least just from a strength adjusted, for instance, strength adjusted defense, like they look beatable to me. Cleveland, Memphis, Milwaukee, like there are definitely schemes and other kind of premier teams in those in your way. They're going to be able to exploit those defenses like we saw Denver do to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Right. Denver had no problem getting open looks from Michael Porter Jr. in that fourth quarter, even though, the at times, they were playing absolutely superlative, crisp. It wasn't making mistakes and you had your elite defenders on the floor. It didn't matter. So I think, there is a handful of ways to bust defense in the NBA right now, and teams with the personnel to be able to pull it off are going to be able to pull it off. So I agree with your general thesis. If you're counting on defense being the differentiating factor for your team, you're in deep trouble. And so where that puts me is you're getting a lot of people who are just pumping the tires on the Bucks right now. And I'm just like, inflate away. I would really like I don't know that I want to see them flip the Celtics ultimately for the 1 seed. But if that gives us better prices on the Celtics in the playoffs and in that series in particular, then so be it. I still think the Bucks are a paper tiger, but I'm increasingly alone on that island. So we'll see.
That is 100% being clipped for socials immediately after this show. But I kind of agree. I don't want to go to that extent, but I do think that the Bucks are probably more flawed than what they're being given credit for in the wider public right now. Obviously, this win streak is super impressive. I mean, you win 16 games in a row in the NBA. That's extremely impressive in any which way. But I mean, when the game slows down, this half-court offense can still get stuck in the mud for me.
Yes.
And when it comes to a matchup like Boston, they can space the floor 5 out. That's how you beat Milwaukee's defense anyway. I don't think that the Bucks are a team that wants to get involved in shootouts against teams like that. So
no,
I'm with you.
100% agreed. And just to kind of zero in on that particularly, like, the Celtics defense could still be a differentiating factor against the Bucks, I think. Particularly because you have lineups like, Robert Williams and Horford on the floor together. That really complicates things for how Giannis wants to run his game offensively. If he's not getting a friendly whistle on any given night, then all of a sudden things dry up real quick for that unit. Drew Holiday is a different player than we saw in the playoffs last year. He's taken a decent, small step forward. He was always very good, but he's playing like all NBA level right now, which I did not expect. Chris Middleton is nowhere to be seen, and I don't think you can realistically expect him to be a meaningful contributor come playoff time, despite what everybody says. So that's kind of the most interesting conversation happening in the NBA right now, because the West is so matchup dependent that trying to look into a crystal ball without really knowing how the chips stack up in the West is kind of a lost cause. The other, just sort of general, just sort of the general read I get on the Bucks, like, you remember when they finally broke through and win? Huge element of that I felt like was management took away the pieces from Budenholzer so that he didn't have all of these different ways to tinker with his lineups, and he didn't. He only played Giannis for 36 minutes or whatever it was, and should have been giving him 40. They kind of look like they have too many pieces again. I know Jay Crowder ultimately, it's stupid to say bringing him in was ultimately going to be a bad thing because he's really important, flexible piece. He's no mileage on his tires at all this season, at least. So that could end up being a huge factor. But at the same time, like, I could see Budenholzer going with an 11-man rotation with the guys he's got here.
Yeah.
And you don't want to learn the hard way in an Eastern Conference Finals that Joe Jingles can't be on the field, on the floor, like that.
Exactly.
But that looks like where we're headed. So, Budenholzer, scared about losing Budenholzer.
I think the fact as well with someone like Jay Crowder, who's good and he was needed for them and fits what they want. But I think the fact that everyone's kind of making it out like he's going to be the one that moves the needle so heavily, if we're really counting on Jay Crowder to be the guy that elevates the Bucks from being, the second best team to the best team in the NBA, I don't think that's a ship I want to sink on, to be perfectly honest. So, I'm extremely bullish on my Celtics, to be honest, in the East, and I kind of with you. I hope that the market keeps just inflating the Bucks to a point where we can get better prices on the Celtics to both win the East and in that series, which I still think will inevitably happen because I don't think any of the other teams. I think the Sixers are frauds still. I think the Cavs are still a year, maybe 2 years away from genuinely being out of there. And I'm not a Miami believer, as we'll talk about in a second. But do you think there's any one of those teams actually trouble the Celtics or the Bucks, or is it just we're basically going to see these two in the conference final?
I am dangerously close to being more scared of the Knicks than I am of the Sixers, particularly if I'm the Celtics.
That's fair.
The Celtics, Sixers aren't beating them in the best of 7. Sorry. But the Knicks do have a couple of matchups that's concern you a little bit. And it does feel like the Knicks are still kind of figuring a couple of things out. And they have this young nucleus of players that, it could break either way. Like they could break out and have incredible playoffs, or, they could be, in over their heads and not really have the answers. Like it could definitely go both ways for the Knicks. But I think the Knicks probably, even in the absence of a true superstar, I think they're a more potentially problematic matchup for the Celtics than the Sixers are at this moment. I don't know. Sixers are they're going to be tough to, like, if their match, like let's say we get Sixers Heat 3-6.
Yeah.
I mean, neither team is going past the first round, second round, but it's going to be tough not to take some Heat prices in that series.
Oh, you have to. I think there'd be a few. I mean, if we get Sixers Knicks, I want Knicks in that series too. I want almost anyone against the Sixers. We spoke about that last show. The issues I think that they have come playoff time, and that they're going to come pretty much to fruition, almost guarantee, especially when Doc Rivers is at the helm there. But just in the chat real quick, a couple people want us to, I guess, put something out there in terms of Western Conference winners. And I agree, because like the last show we said, it's one of those, I don't think I've ever seen it where the West is a situation now where I need to see 1 through 8 and see what everyone's path is and who's matching up with who. But if we're talking purely just from like a top end talent perspective, who do you trust against basically any matchup? Do you think it's the Suns? Do you trust Denver at this point? Like, have they proven enough in the regular season that it's going to transpire into the playoffs? Are the Warriors just going to figure it out again? Like, they're already climbing back into home court for a first round series, if nothing else. Go put your neck on the line with someone here, Drew.
So the West is awesome in terms of the potential matchups we could have. If you're especially for those of us who are in the content game, how fun would it be to talk about Suns Mavericks as a series?
Yeah.
How fun would it be to talk about Nuggets Warriors as a series, Grizzlies Warriors as a series, Suns Warriors? Oh my gosh, that could be round 1. I think the playoffs start today. That's your 4-5. Suns Warriors. Oh my God, Curry versus Durant. You gotta be kidding me. Chris Paul versus Curry. Chris Paul and Durant versus Curry and Dre and Thompson. Oh my God, like what an unbelievable potential. Fodder for talking about the NBA. They really it was not Machiavellian, I don't think, but the fact that the Nets blew up and that you got now reinvigorated belief in the Suns, a little bit of belief in the Mavericks, I guess. It's just they're more interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
Just the fact that those things happened was huge for the NBA broadly. So, feels feels like there might have been a little bit of an invisible hand there, making sure that we get an interesting West. Because before that happened, it was like, oh man, West is going to be a slog again. I don't like any of these matchups. I don't like any of these teams. My read on the West, though, is the Suns should be the favorite, but I don't really like putting my neck out there that they're going to win. And the reasons are pretty obvious. It's still a team that is figuring out who they are, because they have now, incredibly, one of your most important pieces has played one game with you. And it's going to take a little bit of time to find chemistry. And oh, by the way, in a series against the Warriors, who have probably the most, or who had until the pool, Draymond Green, I guess, had probably the best team chemistry of anybody in the NBA. Just guys who have played with each other forever know exactly what to do. And when the going gets tough, like they're going to be, Warriors are going to be a tough out. I am still really trying to figure out why they're so unbeatable at home and just garbage on the road. That doesn't make sense to me at all. And that makes it tough if you're going to be the road team in a playoff series, certainly. And you look at the Warriors after a stretch like lately where they've been at home, they've been beating teams, they've been beating them going away in the second half without Steph Curry, and you're like, geez, these guys are unbeatable. And then they flip and they are on the road with Curry, and you're like, these guys are trash. What's happening? So it depends on when you are talking about those Warriors, how you feel about them, and it's all recency bias, I know. I think part of, in back of my head, I would love to see a rematch of last year's finals of Celtics Warriors so that we can exact some revenge. And it's going to be a much tougher path for the Warriors this year. They have real, true opponents with some real experience and talent, and it's going to be a dogfight. It's not going to be a cakewalk like they effectively had last year. And so at that point, you could get to a finals and there's people who were beating their chests about the Warriors being the right side and being the favorite and blah, blah, blah. Like, that let them kind of be on the wrong side of this one would be pretty delightful comeuppance. But, that's even that is not obvious because the Warriors could find themselves in the 7 or 8 seed. At which point they have a really, really tough first round matchup against the likes of the Nuggets and the Grizzlies. But then the other side of that coin is true as well. So matchups are everything in the West from a team level standpoint, as far as I can tell you. And there's no value at the top of the board that I can see. I think there are probably 4 teams in a series that I would take against the Nuggets in the 1-8. I would take at price, like with a, if you're giving me 2-1 or better, I'll take the Clippers. If you're giving me 3-1 or better, I'll take the, I'll take the Mavericks. If you're going to give me 5-1 or better, I'll take the Pelicans. And then I don't know what, a Warriors I don't think it's realistic that the Warriors would find themselves as the 8th seed, but if they do, and that's the 1-8 matchup, they'll probably be small dogs. I think I would take them against the Nuggets in the 1-8. So, ultimately, I might regret not believing in the Nuggets more because they've been cheap all season long.
Yeah.
But their home court advantage just isn't the same in the playoffs as it is in the regular season. It never is. It's pretty obvious why if you pay attention. And so I think it's I can tell you it's not going to be the Kings ultimately. It's not going to be the Mavericks or Clippers, although they could be round one spoilers. And it's not going to be the Timberwolves, and probably not going to be the Nuggets. So I think that leaves me with Grizzlies, Suns, and Warriors. One of those three.
I'll rule the Grizzlies out for you.
Okay, you talk me out of some Grizzlies.
Don't take the Grizzlies. I think that team's still too flawed offensively in half-court sets for me to trust them in a playoff environment. Like, they've been bottom 8 all season long in points per possession in the half-court. They were last season as well. And I just think that there's not enough spacing and scoring outside of Ja to trust this team to come away with, a best of 7 against a team like Denver or a team like Phoenix, who can offensively get theirs and still do probably enough defensively against a team like that that's still flawed. So, yeah, I'm very anti-Memphis come playoff time. I think I'm going to be, against them, I think, pretty aggressively come the second round.
Okay. I have some pretty weird reasons for liking Memphis, I guess. But I think Desmond Bane solves a lot of the problems you bring up.
He helps immensely. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's been absent for a lot of the regular season. So he's definitely it's a little speculative, but the flashes we saw from him at the beginning of the season looked like he took a huge leap.
Oh, yeah.
Huge. Yeah. And if he is your bona fide number 2 offensive scorer, and now you have kind of a good back and forth where Ja's consistently, either drive a dish, getting to the rim, getting the free throw line, and Bane is killing you from the outside. Like I kind of like that as a 1-2 in terms of balance, in terms of how to consistently win in the half court. But yeah, you do have some issues. Like, there's definitely a lot of, like, they need Steven Adams available to be their best defense in the playoffs, and there's a lot of series where he's probably not going to be able to play.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of the rub with the Grizzlies, and then even beyond that, like, what in the world is going on with Ja and just their attitude in general. You know what? Like, this time last year, the Grizzlies were the big breakout and surprise 2 seed, right? And people at the trade deadline were like, they should make a move, go get a guy. And it was like, no, you got all these assets, you got all these young guys you're developing. Chill the hell out. Like, let them develop, let them go through a playoff run together. They did well, I thought, in the playoffs. They probably should have beaten the Warriors. I thought they were the better team. And then, coming into this year is, they desperately needed to move on from Brooks
Dylan
at
Brooks,
the 3.
Yeah.
And at the trade deadline, there were so many good options for them to go get a real bona fide 3.
I know.
And I was just like, I was sitting there with the finger hovering over like Grizzlies futures, like OG Anunoby, like Miles Bridges, like hey, who could we potentially bring in here who could really move the needle at the 3 and be the differentiating factor? Because I am done with Brooks being on the floor for these guys,
especially when the window is what it is right now in the West. Like, that was probably the biggest head scratcher for me. Is like, the West is open. You don't need to do much, and it's glaringly obvious what you need to do. If you just go and do it, you position yourself as the Suns have done, basically. By going and bringing someone in, and you have the assets to do it, and you get rid of probably the biggest hindrance on your team, especially offensively. So that was a head scratcher that they didn't pull the trigger there.
Yeah. So they did the right thing last year, passing at the trade deadline. I think they needed to do something this year to take the next step forward, and they didn't. So kind of a bummer. All right, you've cooled me off. So I think it comes down to Suns Warriors, and if that's our round 1 playoff series, my goodness gracious, are we? We're going to decide the Western Conference in April. That's going to be wild.
Yeah. Someone asked in the chat really quickly, if the Lakers get fully healthy, grab the 8 seed, what price would it take you to take them against the Nuggets?
What a good question. I'm a little bit confused as to exactly how to price the Lakers right now.
Everyone is. The market's confused as to how to price the Lakers right now.
I don't like how the market priced them today. I'll tell you that much. But I would need 3 plus 350 probably to take the Lakers in that series.
Okay.
I don't think 3-1. I don't think I'm pulling the trigger at 3-1. I think I need a little more.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think I might pull the trigger at 3-1.
It's really interesting hypothetical because, I mean, I don't really know what LeBron James is right now. Independent of his foot injury, like I don't know that he has he's had a lot of opportunities this season to show it in high leverage moments, and I think if he were capable of really elevating a team in a playoff series the way he was when he was a Cav, we would see the Lakers, they'd have 30 wins, and they'd have more than 30 wins, excuse me. But yeah, and they wouldn't be in the, on the outside looking into the plan. They would be kind of where the Clippers are or the Mavericks are, they'd be on the right side of this line. And yeah, I mean, I think if they don't win tonight, if they don't win a handful of games here in the next week, it becomes more likely that LeBron gets shut down. And at that point, you're looking at 2024.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you made a really good point on LeBron. I don't think anyone really knows. We haven't seen it since the bubble. And, I'm not trying to discredit any of that run, but the bubble, they had 3 months to prepare for that playoffs, basically. We don't know what type of state his body's truly in after the course of a full season either, and then going into the playoffs without rest. So maybe this rest is a blessing in disguise for him and the Lakers if they're able to sort of tread water until he gets back and force their way into the play-in. And, this time off serves him well enough that we do see him back to some level required for this team to perform, I think, adequately in a best of 7 series. But yeah, there's just so many question marks around this team. It's so hard to figure them out. Like you said, not just pricing them futures or series wise, but even just night to night at the moment, I'm having a really hard time with them, putting my finger on them and understanding exactly who they are at the moment. But
so realistically, he could come back end of March. You're probably looking at like 26th, 29th of March. Yep. And at that point, there's 8 games left for them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, 7 or 8 games. Whew. This stretch coming up, they got a lot of home games and a handful against some teams that really just aren't playing good basketball right now. So they need to win the coin flip. Like they need to beat the Timberwolves tonight. They need to beat the Warriors when Steph comes back on Sunday at home.
Yeah.
They can't afford to lose these 2 games. Like literally the next 2 losses might basically end the season for them, which is wild. But it's something about LeBron where he kind of changed his way he was playing basketball to chase the scoring record. I thought there were some clear changes in his approach. And after it was all done and he took the little mini break and then he comes back and he was like kind of, yeah, here we go. Like we're gonna do this. Like I was kind of like, okay, like he could prove a lot of people wrong right now. Like this is definitely there's a non-zero chance that he does change his style and lead a team to the playoffs, but the injury really derailed it.
Yeah. And look, I'll be honest, when he went down and then when he came back in, I thought it was just all smoke and mirrors and Hollywood acting, and I didn't think it was anything serious. But here we are, I guess, in this situation right now. But let's dive into our next segment because I want to take a look specifically at that Southeast division really quickly.
Ooh.
It's a mess of a division. Someone has to win it. The Heat minus 220 at the moment to still hang on. The Hawks plus 210 on Pinnacle at the minute to win that division. Strength of schedule, I mean, there's not too much difference between them. Heat 17th, Hawks 10th, but not a whole lot of disparity in terms of the teams remaining, and especially when it comes to the top teams and the number of top teams both have to play. Do you think there's any value here in the market, firstly? And secondly, can we expect Quinn Snyder to really make a whole heap of difference, especially defensively for Atlanta in such a short period of time?
I don't believe in Atlanta at all. Even though, man, door is wide open for them. Oh, this is awful. Oh, this
It's
is
incredible.
awful.
So the Heat right now are they are above 500. However, they're the only team in the NBA above 500 with a negative net rating. And that's because their offense is so bad. It's 25th in points per possession. It's 27th in effective field goal percentage. They're bottom 10 in offensive rebounding percentage. It's just that defense that seems to get it done. And the amount of late game coin flips that they've managed to win and have go their way to even put them in this position at the moment is impressive. But also at the same time, does that have to come undone at some point, or are they just that team that's just going to keep getting it done in the clutch in the regular season at least?
Yeah, I have the Miami Heat power rated as the 22nd best team in the NBA. Right now I have Atlanta as the 19th. I think Atlanta's record is pretty true. Like, I have them as a 500 team.
Yep.
So it's not really like they've underachieved, given their talent. I would not lay points with them against a better team better than average in a neutral.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have them a little power rated, a little under, little to the negative. The Heat, though, my goodness gracious, this offense is atrocious. It's not modern offense. It's that they don't have the answers. There's not, you're right. They've won a lot of coin flips, and they're not playing good basketball lately either, right? Like everybody else who's contending, you've seen a clear, here we go, rounded to form, like now is the time, and the Heat are not doing that at all. Jimmy Butler has put together a really impressive season considering how beat up he's been. I don't think that's changing anytime soon, though. Yeah. If the Heat win this, it's going to be by voodoo in some way, shape, or form. And yet, after all that, I would still take them at a dog price against the likes of the Sixers. So maybe the joke is on me here. Spoelstra's coaching this unit above, to a record that's above what they ought to be. He's done that a lot. This isn't new. Coaching in the NBA matters. And yeah, I think the fact that they are in position. I thank God they got rid of they just made it neutral seating because, right, like a Southeast Division win doesn't guarantee you're out of the plan, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You could still if you're the 7th seed, you're still playing your way in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank God they fixed that, because this would be the year you'd pull your hair out. Now, all that said, the Nets are going to fall out of the mix. Raptors aren't going anywhere. Raptors are going to pull their way into the 7-8 7-8 discussion. Realistically, I think you could probably flip Nets and Raptors right now, and you should probably flip Hawks Heat, and I think that's going to be your 7-8. Whether that's in Miami or Atlanta is going to depend on how healthy Jimmy Butler is later in the month of March, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to play twice still to close out the regular season, so that'll, I think, swing things ultimately one way or the other. I'm writing a lot of Hawks preseason division positions, which I haven't bought out of. I don't think
plus money price on that.
Yeah,
that was like
I got plus
150.
300. No,
plus 300.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
This was like a solid month before the season started. A lot of plus 200 as well. Still added up on top of that.
I'm holding a lot of 200 to 1 on the Magic. That's not going to cash.
I joined you and our NBA group on that one.
Holding a lot of that.
It was a great week. Grabbing a hold of that one and
they beat the Celtics twice.
They did.
This is de facto Eastern Conference champs right there.
Yeah, that was a fun week, but that one's not going anywhere. But yeah, I have no intention of buying out of that Hawks position. I'm happy to ride it to the end, to be honest.
Yeah. Do they have the tiebreak, or they get the tiebreak if they beat the Heat twice here down the stretch, which they're going to have to do probably to close the gap? So
exactly, I think they have to do it regardless. But at the moment, it's tied at 1 apiece in the season series. So yeah, and I'm not sure who has the conference tiebreak. That would be interesting as well, because if it finishes 2-2, there's still obviously a pathway that they finish with an equal record, and the Hawks have the conference tiebreaker if it goes to that. Hawks are 19-20 at the moment against the Eastern Conference. The Heat are 16-20.
Oh, jeez.
Which is just
So, man, I don't know how the Heat. I don't know how they keep getting away with this. I really don't understand how they are 33-30. This team,
I scratch my head at it every day. I just the Hawks really should have had this wrapped up by now by just being semi-competent. But going into just quickly on the Quinn Snyder issue, I don't think there's enough time for him to really implement a whole lot of schemes that are going to change things in terms of how they're performing at the defensive end. I don't even think he can really do much to implement how they run their offense in a different way to what they've been running so far either. I think it's still going to be a little bit vanilla. It's just a matter of whether he can get buy-in from the players, which is more than what they had when Nate McMillan was there. But if you had to buy in at this point, are you buying in on the Hawks at that current price, which is plus 210? Or would you look at the Heat? Or would you even look at Washington? I mean, like the Wizards are what, 2.5 games back from Miami at this point in that division?
I mean, I have the Wizards power rated higher than the Hawks. That's not a good sign for the Hawks, I guess.
You can get them.
How far is the gap? I guess the gap isn't that far.
2.5 games. They're plus 900 to win the division.
Let me take a crack. I have a side tab here that runs numbers on stuff like this. So let me just see what I project them to finish win-loss here compared to the Hawks. Now, I have the Hawks projected to finish better, so there must be something schedule-wise. That I have. I tip in the direction of the Hawks here over the Wizards.
Okay.
It's not opponent either, because the Wizards have a slightly easier.
They do,
opponent slightly. Strength of opponents. It must be rest.
We're pulling hairs when it comes to just looking at the schedule opponent for both those teams specifically. I mean, Atlanta and Washington still have to play 3 times as well.
God, man, those games are going to be pick'ems, all of them.
Yeah, the Hawks. Yeah, the Hawks have to play Miami twice, Washington 3 times. So I mean, them winning the division is entirely on how they perform within the division now at this point.
Oh man. Quinn Snyder, never really been my guy.
Great regular season coach, though.
You know what I probably needed to do in preparation for this discussion was rewatch a lot of that last game that he coached, his only game coaching for the Hawks, and that they somehow lost to the Wizards. Fourth quarter was just absolutely atrocious for them. I got to look maybe a little bit at what some of his rotation decisions were in that fourth quarter, who was taking shots, and why it was such a disaster for them. Good.
Part of it was one of those quarters where Washington was hitting a ton of contested jumpers and just making threes that were not in any way, shape, or form wide open or the right shot to be taking at that moment in time. So I want to give some benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, their offense did come undone in a pretty drastic way in the clutch, which was a little bit alarming.
Interesting. So Corey Kispert was the difference in that game, basically. Wizards were only 6 of 21 from 3, so they didn't even get that many threes off, and they only hit 6. Wow. I mean, how did the Hawks lose this game? I mean, the Hawks have had a dozen of these this year where you're just like,
exactly.
How did you lose? And
they have been the absolute opposite of the Miami Heat, where they have lost games that are just absolute head scratchers, while the Heat have somehow won games where they just looked dead and buried for the most part. And that's how we've kind of ended up where we are right now with the standings.
Man. All right. Well, the Wizards, nobody really on the Wizards is elevating their performance enough for me to buy into these guys. The starting 5. Let's see, when are we expecting Porzingis to play? What?
Yeah,
Plays
I mean, he played yesterday.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's going to be broadly available down the stretch for them.
Yeah,
Unless
for majority,
until he gets hurt again.
Yeah.
And Kyle Kuzma is not. He is not on the upswing right now. He's on like a little bit of a lull for me, even though he's putting up some decent points and just a lot of usage.
Are we trusting Beal to see out the season as well? I mean, he's someone who's probably due for an injury too.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a late season Dame whiff to him, where he's like, "Hey, don't forget about me." But then ultimately, like, it's too much and he's too old to carry this team for this long, and ultimately the wheels fall off there. So, God, man, I can't believe I might be betting the Hawks here. Basically, all of my numbers say the Hawks are the right play at plus. You said 210 plus 210.
Yeah, plus 210 on Pinnacle. Yeah.
I think that's a bettable number.
Yeah, I like the Hawks 8-man rotation. Like, I really do. Sadiq Bey, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Onyeka Okongwu, first 3 off the bench. I like it a lot. I think it's steady. AJ Griffin, if you want to make it a 9-man rotation, is completely fine by me as well. I think they have the better squad. You're picking hairs when it comes to the schedule, and ultimately it's just going to come down to that in division matchups between the Hawks and the Heat, those 2 games, and then the Hawks and the Wizards 3 times.
Yeah.
And
God, man.
2 of the 3 games. Is it 2 of the 3 games are going to be in Atlanta between Hawks and Wizards?
Yeah, I like this. I like the general rest, the kind of the fabric of their schedule in terms. They got this coming up with at the Heat, Saturday, Monday, and then at Wizards, which is weird. This is bizarre that they set them up this way. But after that 4-game stretch, even if they end up with a split there 2-2, which is your most likely outcome considering the strength of those teams is so close. Even if that, then that's their last road trip of the season. They don't have back-to-back road games for the rest of the way. They don't have a lot of back-to-back games, period. They face a number of teams that have back-to-backs. When they do have back-to-backs, the second night, the only one that looks like trouble is at the T-Wolves, because they're basically home for the Pistons, and then they turn right around and play at the T-Wolves the next day. But nothing about the front end of that suggests you're going to have to play your guys more than, minimum number of minutes. So they should be able to, maybe the right time is to, actually, yeah. So in terms of market entry, which is always important for this sort of stuff. You almost need to do it now in case they beat the Heat back to, if they go 2-0 against the Heat there.
Exactly.
And if they split with the Wizards, then that plus 210 is going to be like pick them.
Yeah. I mean, if they sweep the Heat, I mean, then the Heat have the Cavs back to back after Atlanta back to back.
Yeah. All right, let's go Hawks.
Let's do it.
My numbers say this is a plus EV bet. This is the right time to do it. I think this is a good one. Good look.
Let's pencil it in. Let's get ready for all the pain that comes.
You don't need to do. You got a better number.
Yeah. I'll probably buy more. Let's be honest. Speaking of plus EV in bets, let's jump into today's card real quick for everyone though. Look at our best bets that we've made. I'll run through my 3 real quickly. I'm on the Brooklyn Nets plus 11, which is just going to be an uncomfortable experience, but that number's just too high. They have to cover eventually as well. I think this might be the spot. Celtics coming off of that game against the Cavs, and they got the Knicks on deck after this as well. It might just be a little bit of a flat spot for them where they don't necessarily have to put their foot on their throats. So I'm hoping that the Nets can hang around in that one. I'm on the under 2. I got under 216. It's under 215 now in the Knicks Miami. It just keeps ticking down. This is just going to be a pedestrian pace game. I have it projected literally for like 89 possessions or something around that number. I think off the top of my head. We've already spoken about it. I don't trust the Heat offense. They're terrible. I think the Knicks defense is good enough. But I think that, Miami at home, their defense is just capable of really clamping down and making life uncomfortable for the Knicks.
I like that bet.
So, yeah, I grabbed, like I said, under 216. That's now 215. And I'm on the under 220, 7.5 in Minnesota, LA. That's 226.5 now. I basically just going to double back on what I said earlier, where it's these games of really high importance and magnitude where the possessions are down, the defense is up, the offense can just get a little bit nervy sometimes. I think that the Lakers have some nice onboard defenders now as well that they can deal with, and in a respectable manner. And I think that the Timberwolves are in the same position where Gobert becomes super important in a matchup like this on the inside, crashing the glass, defending the rim. And I really like what Anthony Edwards is doing defensively at the moment, and what Jaden McDaniels does defensively as well on ball. So, that's my positions for today. A couple of unders there on the Brooklyn plus 11. Any disagreement there? And then what are you on as well?
Funny enough, no disagreement. I like all three of your looks. And I played all three games. Those are the only three bets I have too. So we don't even know. Sorry if you wanted to cover the entire board, which is awesome today. We're not going to get there because we're on the same three games. I agree with you that Brooklyn is plus 11. If Brooklyn plus 11 is a bet. If you told me that the Celtics win their next 15 games but lose all 15 against the spread, I wouldn't be surprised. This is kind of the mode that I feel like they are in right now. Like they literally are like, what do we have to do to win? Okay, let's do it. And let's get our guys as much rest as possible. I think you're going to see some pretty aggressive rotation of rest for these guys in the month of March.
Absolutely.
And they should. Absolutely, they should. If there was,
after what happened last season, you have to.
Yeah, you have to. And I think that just kind of as you stand back and look macro at what they've done all year, it looks like this has been part of the plan for them. Like they pretty clearly were like, look, let's, we're going to, we're going to double down and find our offense early when we don't have Rob Williams. We're going to just try to distance, get enough wins in the win column that we don't really have to worry about a second round, road series. And if they get the 1 or the 2, they don't really care. In fact, they may be better off with the 2 because, round 2, they get the Sixers, which is a nice matchup. Now, you don't want to be on the road for a game 7 in Milwaukee. Like, if the Celtics don't win that game, God, dude, the refs and Giannis and the benefit of the doubt he's going to get from a whistle in a game 7 in Milwaukee is going to stink. So I think you have to be, you keep your eyes wide open. You're going to have to go. There's not enough margin that I think you can comfortably feel like you can win 6 at home. So yeah, I don't know. Celtics aren't going to cover this game, I don't think, though. So 11 plus 11 for the Nets is a good bet. I liked your thoughts on the New York Miami game and the pace. This has a lot of whiffs of the New York Celtics game in terms of pace, which was 109-94 or something like that. Exactly. 199 points. A throwback to the days of old, or I don't know, 205 points, whatever it was. Just a nasty one, and I think this is probably going to play out similarly. I do like the Knicks in this spot. I laid the points there. Interested to see, do we have final word one way or the other on Jimmy Butler? Probably not. Probably not going to know for another hour.
Yeah, you won't know. Yeah, till basically tip. But that's still, it's sitting at it's pushed up to a 3 now.
I don't know that. I don't know that anyone really knows.
Indecisive,
So the Knicks are a bet for me. I still think 3 is a fair play. And then I took the Minnesota Timberwolves, got them at a dog price earlier today. They're flipped back to small favorites. I still think -1 is playable. I agreed with all your takes on Minnesota generally. Like the way they're playing. They look like the team that I had kind of thought they were going to be coming out of the gate. And if they ultimately do anything in the playoffs, I'm going to be pretty pissed. Because
me too. I think we were both in alignment, right? That they were going to truck the regular season.
Yeah,
that was me.
They were absolutely. I really thought that this team was primed to be a problem in the regular season, and they have been just wildly underwhelming. The fact that they are kind of now putting together winning basketball. Although I should say they a gross loss and a close loss coming out of the All-Star break before getting a very, very much needed win against the Clippers. Still though, like the signature I have on this team is good enough that I do not mind playing them against the Lakers without LeBron. And without LeBron and oh, by the way, without Scottie Pippen Jr. Yeah, he's been designated for G League time, and there was somebody else funny too that hit the wire from them. Cole Swider also not going to be available for this game. He's on
adjust accordingly.
Adjust accordingly. But no, really, I mean, D'Angelo Russell not available for this game. Anthony Davis heading to the locker room at some point. T-Wolves, see if they can continue to find a little bit of form here as they have, fortuitously worked their way into the playoff discussion after just a wildly unimpressive season.
Yeah, I think they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, I bet them a week ago to make the playoffs. I think I got plus 170. I still think that they're going to get there, to be honest. Even if they finish in the 7-8 seed, I like them to still be able to navigate the play-in specific matchups. It'll be interesting to see how they go with Cat back, though, and how they run their rotations with him and Gobert specifically.
Yeah. Do you have an expectation on when he will be back?
No, like I remember a week ago, it was that he was last week when I made the bet. It was that he was back in 5-on-5 contact, and there has not been a word about it since. And I'm a little bit confused as to whether that is because they're still unclear on a proper timeline and whether they want to manage the injury, or whether part of it now is, do they want to rock the boat and disrupt what they've got? Because it's going to be a pretty seismic change, I think, to how they run their rotations, how they run their offense, who's getting touches when and where, etc.
Yeah, that's a fair expectation. So, talking to a couple folks here, it looks like mid-March is his timeline currently.
So he'd come back with maybe 8 games to go.
That's okay. Like you would expect a return sometime around the Celtics game. Okay. Ooh, man, their stretch is a lot of road games and a lot of good teams. Yeah. There's some bad spots on this stretch too. Ooh, they need to win this game tonight. Yep. so do the Lakers, which means unders.
Yeah.
Under.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Good luck, Rob. I might double dip on those two. Looking for some grinded out.
Yeah. Just a quick one from Matt in the chat. How soon can they move on from Cat? I believe they can move this offseason. So they couldn't do it before the deadline, even if he was healthy and available, because of the Supermax that he signed. But as of this offseason, that's a movable contract. I think they're going to explore all possible options personally. Do you think that's the best route for them? Do you think that's what they're going to do as well? Or are they going to try and still force feed this to work?
He can be traded July 7th, 2023. I don't think there is any fixing the relationship between player and organization. Apparently, by the looks of it, there was a lack of communication about going for Rudy Gobert and trying to integrate him, and and making sure that Cat was on board with that as a concept, because it certainly has never felt like he has wanted to play the other big role out there. And so they gave up so much in terms of
future.
They gave up so much. Insane. Yeah, they gave up so much to get Gobert. If you can get, and it's going to be insane when they get a haul that's lesser than what they gave up for Gobert, but that's what they're staring at, and they probably need to do it. I think if you just have Edwards and and you build around him for the future as your alpha, that's fine.
100%. Yep.
Fine. But doesn't change the fact that guys are getting fired for this. Like it's not gonna and honestly, like there may be a hesitancy to trade him based on what his value is, just because if you pull the trigger on that and now you've given up more, if you were the guy that gave up more than you got for with these two players, you're almost like sentencing yourself to death.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see what Cat would garner in the market as well.
Maybe we're wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could get a super duper haul from him. I mean, there's a lot of teams that desperately need a superstar. There's only two guys who can really move the needle in this year's draft, and only one of them is big, and only one team's going to get him. So if Houston, for whatever reason, has completely sold out on tanking for Wemby, and they don't get him, maybe Houston is willing to listen to offers for, maybe they'll be like, okay, well, we're bringing James Harden back. Let's go get Cat also. Now, that was probably what you would hope for. I really don't think there's anyone.
Do you think there's like a middle of the pack team that could, like, would someone like Toronto entertain the call potentially? Like, Pirtle's going to want big money. I don't think they're going to re-sign him for that big money. They clearly are, I think, giving up on the idea of having 5 guys who are all the same on the court at the same time. So they're going to probably go a more traditional route. Does someone like Cat appeal to them? I feel like I'm just trying to like brainstorm. Is there anyone outside of the absolute bottom feeders who could do with him and who would want him and might be able to come up with a trade?
I kind of have too much respect for Toronto's front office to think they would give up a big old package for Cat. Now, at the same time, would they try to lowball Minnesota and just see if they could take a problem off their hands? Sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like a team like Houston may be more likely to actually give you the goods to pull the trigger on that kind of a deal than a team like Toronto. But I struggled to figure out what the vision was for Toronto at the trade deadline this year. Like they were clear beneficiaries of COVID rules in terms of travel last year, and just in general, like a bounce back year with a good coach and a young team and that was healthy. And it felt like they looked at their seeding and convinced themselves they were better than they were. So that kind of clouded a lot of their decision making, I feel like, this year around the trade deadline. First of all, when they even decided that they were going to be sellers and then ultimately not selling. And, all of that was very strange. I don't really know how you rebuild this team on the fly. You have a great coach and a couple of nice pieces. Kind of disappointing that Scotty Barnes has taken no steps forward this year for them. But, I think if it's still a guy that you want as a huge important piece, but not your central piece. And I don't think Cat is your central piece if you're Toronto. So middle of the pack team like the Pacers, no, they have too much committed to Miles Turner now, but they're going to move Miles Turner at some point.
They're happy with what they've got there. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I don't know either. I don't think there is anything else out there.
There's a couple of crazy, like you could try to pick the pocket of a team like the Kings or something, right? So like the Kings, does he fit? No. But do the Kings find themselves in the same spot that the Timberwolves did last offseason where they're like, we need a star.
We want to accelerate.
We're contending. We need a guy like that. You kind of need a team like that. That's not necessarily middle of the road. That's going to put themselves into the playoffs with the move, but a team that's like, made the playoffs and thinks this is the answer to us being a title contender next year. And I don't really know who that team is.
Pelicans?
Man, really, really, really too many questions about like what they want to be.
Like it's an immediate upgrade on Valanciunas.
It is. God, a lot of guys that want the ball in their hand, though.
Yeah. It gives them assurance when Zion inevitably misses a month or two of basketball that you still have BI and Cat. I don't know. It's a hard one. I feel like we could brainstorm forever here and probably still end up with nothing like what the ultimate outcome might end up being.
Yeah, I feel like the Kings wouldn't be the worst because you could move Sabonis to the power forward, and those two players, there's redundancy, but they are also kind of complementary basketball in a lot of ways. You move Keegan Murray down to small forward, and now you've got your Fox, Herter, Keegan, Sabonis, Cat. You got four guys that can shoot.
Yeah,
you got some dogs there. Like Sacramento might talk themselves into something like that.
I could definitely see it. They're going to be that team in the offseason anyway that's just so on a high from making the playoffs that front office is just going to talk themselves into doing exactly what you said Minnesota did and just trying to accelerate any process and get better immediately by any means necessary. So
yeah,
I could see
you might be able, who you might also be able to come up with the deal where you're not getting future assets, but you're getting guys who can play now who kind of fit your philosophy would be Brooklyn.
That would be fun.
I don't know that you're going to get 95 cents for your dollar entirely, but you're at least going to get some guys who can play now, which is more than what you need. More of what you need if you want to try to make this roster work.
Yeah, that would be a really fun one to discuss. All right, before we round off the show, Drew, it is time for our favorite segment on here, which is Squad Ride. Chris, let's cue this up for everyone.
You're very confident, I'll say that. But you shouldn't be.
All right, Squad Ride's been good. Here's the deal. We have a Discord chat. We have a bunch of really fun, exciting characters in there. Some of them know their betting. Some of them do not know their betting, which makes this segment all the more fun. They put forth their favorite bets for today. I'll read them out to you, and you pick which one is the official Squad Ride that the Discord jumps on together. They are 8-5 since we started it, which is far, far better than I ever imagined that they would be. So kudos to them. I'll read them out to you. You take your time. You can talk through them, do what you like, but you give us which one stands out to you the most. So we have Knicks first quarter -0.5, Knicks first half -1 as two separate options. They are just staples that these guys put forth every week and recycle. So I feel like it's cheating. We have as well Bulls Suns first quarter under 54.5 points.
Ooh.
We have Jazz Thunder first quarter over 56.5 points. And we have Trae Young over 26.5 points as a player prop option as well.
Yeah, I'm out on Trae.
Out on Trae. Rule it out immediately.
I would put the two up for consideration. The Bulls Suns first quarter under.
Mm-hmm.
Suns, by the way, with Durant, and he's going to get a decent minute share in the first quarter, I would guess. But that team's better defensively than I thought they were going to look.
They I know it was Charlotte, and I don't want to get carried away.
Yeah,
but they did look really good.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised at how fluid things. Guys, I felt like it was going to be shoe on the other foot a little bit.
Yeah.
The offense was going to be no problem. It was going to take them a little while to figure out defense, but it was the opposite. I don't really know. I don't know how you take a guy like Bridges, who's so good at his role, and it turns into an upgrade, but so be it. That one I'm put in consideration. And then what was the Knicks first half line again? 1.5? No,
just one, flat one.
Oh, just one. Yeah. I think I would pick between those two. And, frankly, I already have some Knicks, so maybe let's go with the Bulls Suns first half under. What do you think?
Yeah, Bulls Suns first quarter under. I like that a lot too.
First quarter under, yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. I think that Chicago defensively is still a little bit better than what they're showing up in the market. And their offense is, I think, going to have difficulties negating some of these matchups on the Phoenix end of the basketball court. Yeah. But I don't disagree with Knicks first half either. Let's lock in both. Let's go 2. We've done 2 before.
Okay.
Let's go 2 squad rides.
Let's do it. That's right.
Knicks first half -1. Bulls Suns first quarter under 54.5. I trust both defenses to get enough stops there.
In the blind, The Chicago Bulls rank what in opponent adjusted defense, Josh?
15? 14?
Fourth.
Wow.
Fourth. Their opponent adjusted D rating 111.5. The only teams that are better than them are the Grizzlies, the Cavaliers, and the Bucks. You want to know what the Suns rank? Granted, this is a different Suns team.
Yeah.
But you want to know what the Suns rank?
Yeah, hit me.
Just guess. You guess?
Yeah, it's hard with all the changes. I still think they'd be around 10 to 9, 10.
Number 6. So you got 2 top 6 defenses taking the floor in the first quarter in a game that means a lot to both teams. So I like it.
That.
Yeah, let's go defense.
Let's go defense. Let's go squad right. Let's see if we can get them to 10-5 on the season. I'm never going to hear the end of it. The Discord is just going to annoy me to hell if they keep this streak going. But just quickly, a couple guys in the chat saying the Discord link is expired. I apologize. That's probably my fault. That's why I don't set these things up and I have a producer, but we'll put a fresh Discord link in. Anyone can join. It's free. It's fun. There's a lot of ruckus going on all day, every day in there, but appreciate you guys immensely in that chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And most of all, Drew, thank you for taking the time, man, to chat hoops again with me. It's been a little while, but had a lot of fun as always. And for anyone that doesn't catch your daily shows, do you want to point everyone to the awesome stuff you guys do with Bet the Edge?
Yeah. So NBC puts together a podcast every day. We try to keep it pretty short and sweet. It was all NFL focus all the time, which is during the regular season. And since then, we've kind of pivoted to being a little bit of jack of all trades. But we're finding some form in a couple of sports, and I think it's going to be pretty much daily NBA from the time the tournament ends till the time the playoffs are over. At least that's my hope. And then from there, we'll pivot to a little bit of summer tennis, some summer baseball, NFL offseason talk all summer long. So daily stuff for NBC at NBC Bet the Edge.
Yeah, and obviously the Deep Dive podcast as well. If you guys aren't subscribed to that, definitely do so. Fun episode talking Formula One. I'm super excited for the season to start.
Yeah, you got any picks? You got a race coming up, right? Melbourne's kind of early on the calendar, isn't it?
Yeah. That's third race up, so the end of this month.
Okay, cool.
Which is super exciting. I as much as it pains me to say it, I think that Red Bull are just going to run away with it again. In constructors and in individual, I think Max is obviously just going to blitz the field. They're too far ahead of the field right now. Do you think that there's any chance of anyone else?
I give Mercedes a chance.
I hope so.
For the constructors, because like they got 2 guys. They could 2-3 a lot of podiums. I'm basically cold on Ferrari and warm on Mercedes heading into the season. I think Max is your drivers. You could see a split like we had 2 years ago, where Max was the it took him a while, but he ultimately clinched late. And Mercedes was the constructor.
I hope so. I think Mercedes has the best 2-driver combination on the grid. It's just whether they can get that car on track or not the way they need to. But like I said, definitely jump on, listen to that last episode, subscribe to the Deep Dive. Drew, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, best of luck with all of your bets today. It'll be a fun slate of NBA action. I will be back next week for some more board better shows. But until then, I'll catch you all in the Discord and we will chat soon.